It's time for the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth, financial literacy educator and speaker, entrepreneur, and chairman of the board of a bank in formation. Take charge of your financial future with Your Personal Bank. Now here's Ference Toth.
Welcome to the Your Personal Bank Show, and today we have a special guest, Jack Ryback, and we're going to talk about estate planning. Welcome. Jack's been with us on the show before, and I get a lot of questions about estate planning, trusts, wills, power of attorneys, all those kinds of things. So if you have any questions in that regard, today's going to be a great show for you. So Jack, welcome to the Your Personal Bank Show.
Thank you, Ference. I'd like to say hello to everybody, and glad to be back.
That's
glad to
awesome.
be here.
That's awesome. So I guess the first question I really should ask you, Jack, is what is estate planning?
Well, estate planning is really a comprehensive approach to really protecting all your assets, putting them in the right place, making sure you got the right people taking care of you. I've been working with Ference for a while, and it really not to sound evasive here, but it's for everybody. In other words, you could be, a lot of people think, well, I don't need estate planning because I'm not rich. I'm making so much money a year, I don't have that much saved. Well, Ference will show you, and we can show you how you can take that money and build an estate, build a legacy. And estate planning is really making sure, just as it sounds, you're planning for your legacy, you're planning for your estate to make sure that your money is growing the best way that you need personally. Everybody's needs are different. And at the same time, I get involved with trust, carrying it even further, so that whatever you do with estate planning, it's protected for the family that you want to protect, so that your estate is going where you want it to go, whether it's to you in retirement or whether it's going to children or whatever.
And Jack, I like what you were saying there. In fact, one of the asset protection attorneys that we recommend and have worked with for years, I always like what he puts it. He goes, building your nest egg, building your growth, Your Personal Bank does that. That's kind of where I focus. He calls that the offense. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's offense. But he goes, what most people do is, like, estate planning is protecting your assets. That's defense.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. So many people that I've dealt with, we get these phone calls all the time from people that maybe somebody else put their trust together, didn't do their estate quite as efficiently or effectively as it could have been done. And we try to salvage whatever we can and put them in the right place. And so many of these people can, little things, which it may sound little, but they're really not little when the time comes. Somebody passes away, and I get these frantic calls from a survivor or a beneficiary or somebody in the family who says, I know my dad left me, we have $2 million and we can't find the trust. Mm-hmm. And even though we can get a copy of the trust, it's not necessarily a legal trust unless it's all done right and signed and notarized and dated and all that. So it's not only protecting it, putting your money in the right place, it's also having somebody guide you to make sure that it's done right, so that you don't have any problems or frantic times, in your lifetime and when you're gone.
Right. And back to my analogy, one more thought on this offense and defense thing is, so many people focus on the offense because that's exciting, that's fun, growing your money, growing your nest egg and all that. But oftentimes, I see this quite often, somebody may be great at offense and growing their nest egg, and they tend to neglect the defense. And we all know championships are won by defense, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We like those touchdowns, but if you don't have a defense, you're not winning.
Exactly. So that's sort of the why of estate planning, I guess. Who should be considering looking into estate planning?
I honestly believe that as long as you do what they call a revocable trust, which means you could always change it, and people do, things change in life, I would start it as soon as you have some assets, any assets to protect. That could be as small as a bank account, as well as insurance policies, stock portfolios. Your home, is a very essential one. If you own a home, I strongly recommend you have a trust for that.
In fact, I was going to say, kind of finishing that thought you were saying, is one of the attorneys, estate planning attorneys I've worked with or recommended many clients with for decades now, he always says, well, who needs a trust? He says, well, I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and if the answer is yes to any of these 3, you need to look into it. Do you own a home?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have kids? And do you have assets or investments?
Yeah, and let me say this too, because since I've been doing trust and we've been doing trust for what?
Well, we
15,
recommend
20 years
them
now.
to attorneys to do them.
Well, yeah, but I mean, helping people with their trust. Let me put it that way.
Steering them the right way.
Yeah, it's very simple. So many people. I talked to somebody yesterday. Says, "Well, I think I could do my own trust." Well, it's a little more complicated than that. Number one, you want to make sure you're doing it right, but there are situations that develop. For example, I've got one call where a man has a daughter that needs what we call it special needs, and he's a little worried. You know, I'm going to give her an equal share, but I can't trust that she can handle the money. So we do. There's certain things you can do. One of them is a special needs trust. A lot of people don't realize there's so many things you could do, but if you talk to us, just like Ferenc is saying, with all the investments and really taking care of your whole financial portfolio, if you will, is to really get personal with it and to talk to you and find out what your goals are, what your situation is, adapting when it's time to change that situation because things happen, and we can help you do that. And that's why you do a trust, though.
Now, you kind of alluded to one thing here, and because we kind of talked about who should look into a trust, and well, obviously, just about anybody with any kind of assets, or like you said, a property or kids or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned already about somebody maybe doing their own. Certainly, somebody can do that. But why should somebody look into having a qualified attorney set up a trust?
I could tell you from all the years of doing this, people forget things or didn't know, and they go, "Oh, geez, I forgot to put that in the trust or name it in the trust." When you do a trust, you have to fund it. And what they mean by fund it is you're not paying money into an actual trust. What you're doing is you're taking your investments, whether it be an insurance policy, a life plan, whatever, wherever your money is, including some assets, of course, your home, cars, vehicles, is that they have to be titled in the name of the trust. And that's what they mean by putting your assets into the trust. I got a woman who called up and said, "Well, how much do I have to put in?" I said, No, you already have it in because you own a home, you have vehicles, and this and that. Why you should use somebody, as getting back to Ferenc's question, people don't realize oftentimes what goes into a trust, and we're very conscientious about keeping them up to date on that and making sure that they are crossing their T's, dotting their I's. And when you do your own, you have a tendency sometimes to forget, "Oh yeah, I bought a brand new car."
Or not even realize.
Well, yeah, or not realize
that something should be
vehicles are a good example. I've got people that I've gotten calls from people that, "Well, wait, my dad promised me this, this huge trailer camper that he has. It's worth a lot of money." Well, it wasn't in the trust, and so what happens? It goes to probate, which means attorneys, and while we love attorneys when we need them, we don't want to give our money to attorneys if we don't have to. And
all right, so let's talk. You brought up probate. So what is probate?
Probate is really when your estate has to go to a court, and the court assigns lawyers or however they do it, but they're basically, it goes to court. That's really what you have to know, and that means that lawyers are figuring out your estate, and by the time you're done, you oftentimes are not getting what you're supposed to or what you hope to.
I've seen studies showing that probate, and there's arguments on both sides of this, of course, but anywhere from a third or more of a typical estate can be eaten up by attorney
absolutely.
and court fees.
Yeah,
oftentimes.
Absolutely. And just like with your entire financial planning, you want to put it in places where the attorneys don't get it, and you want to make sure the government doesn't get it. And so having a good trust, having a good thorough plan will prevent a lot of that and really protect you in the long run.
And then, of course, there's the time frame of any court case takes a while.
Oh, yeah. Good point. Everybody's in a different situation. Not everybody's real rich and could wait and don't care about it, although you have some people like that, and God bless them. I wish I was one of them. The truth is that somebody passes away, and you know that you're going to get whatever it is, $100,000 of their assets. It'd be nice to get it when you need it, and not wait till 2 years, 3 years, and sometimes even longer.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, probate can be expensive and take a long time.
Absolutely.
So the other thing I find with folks that, one of the reasons I encourage them to look into an estate plan, a trust, and all that, are the power of attorneys.
Yeah, the powers of
Tell us about more about those and what they do.
There are different power of attorneys. For example, there's a medical power of attorney. Someone's going to make decisions for you if you're not in a mental state or physical state where you can take care of yourself. Who do you want to trust to that? Make those decisions. There's a general power of attorney. It sounds repetitive. If you looked at your trust or you look at a good trust, it's very thick, and there's all different powers of attorneys. But it's who's going to handle what for you. And powers of attorney are giving people that right. And the other thing I want to say, which I find, is people say, well, I can't do a trust. I don't know anybody that really wants that big responsibility. And the truth is, with what we do for you and what the attorneys do for you, you don't need to know almost anything other than just being a nice person who's going to distribute the assets the way you, as the trust owner, wants them to be divided up. And
or handled if you're in the hospital, for example.
Yeah, exactly. We joke about it. Well, I joke about it that if I get to a point where I can't make decisions and I can't even talk, I told my children, if I blink my left eye, that means turn the channel on the television. If I blink my right eye, that means put the pillow over my head. And I know my kids are going to be standing in front of me saying, was that my left or his left?
There you go.
I don't mean to make light of it, but the fact is, life is never ending for anybody. And you want to make sure that everything you've worked so hard your whole life for, and I don't care, again, if you're talking 100,000 or 100 million, it doesn't matter. You've worked hard for your money. In my opinion, you deserve to be protected. And for very little, you can do a trust and make sure that it's done right and take care of your family. It's really protecting your whole family.
Setting up that good defense, right?
Absolutely. And again, they are what they call revocable. Revocable means you can change it at any time because situations change.
Well, I'm going to encourage people to stay tuned in the next segment because Jack's going to be with us. We're going to discuss more about estate planning. But if you want to contact Jack for more information, how do they reach you?
Well, they can call. They could call the office number at 866-515-6280. Or you can email me at jackr@securemgt.com. And I will always get back to you as quick as I can.
That's awesome. We're going
to break. Okay.
We're going to break. Stay tuned. We'll have Jack with us about estate planning on the next segment, so don't miss it.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show, and today we've got Jack Ryback with us. We're talking about estate planning. So Jack's worked with me, over a decade. It's been a long time.
Time flies.
And as you listen to the show, the Your Personal Bank Show, I tend to focus on growing your money safely, guaranteed, tax-free, getting positive arbitrage. We've got all those great things. That's sort of what we always call the offense, growing your nest egg, doing it safely in a tax-free manner. But it's also important, like one of our asset protection attorneys that we often refer clients to, he always says you got to build a good defense too, because defense wins championships. You like you said, Jack, before, you can be scoring touchdowns every time, but if you don't ever stop the other team, you don't win. So that's really what estate planning is about. It's about protection, right, Jack?
Yeah, and let me say something else. Ference and I were talking during the break. A lot of people think, well, I need a will. I need a will. I get a lot of calls like that. I need a will. Well, actually, first of all, let me say that a will not keep it out of probate. People think it is. They think it's the greatest protection. It's not. The trust will keep it out of probate, or lawyers' hands, if you will. And a will is part of the trust that's prepared. In living, they call it a living will.
Well, you're right, Jack, because there is a lot of confusion on that, and I've gotten the same questions from clients over the decades. There's the trust, which, like you said, keeps things out, avoids probate. designates your beneficiaries and all that kind of stuff, and determines where things are supposed to go once you're gone. We mentioned the power of attorneys, the medical and financial power of attorneys. That's who makes decisions for you if you're incapacitated for some reason. Okay. Then there is a will as part of a estate plan, and also a living will. What's the difference?
Well, for example, and I can give you a good example based on a phone call I got the other day. There's a woman that has in her living will that she wants her body, when she dies, to go to science. And her family, they have considerable money, and they're saying, well, are you doing that, Mom, because you want to save money? And she says, no, I think it will do some good. And they're fighting within the family. No, we don't think that's right. You should be cremated or buried or whatever it is they want. And like I tell people that I help with their trust, it doesn't matter what your kids say or anyone else says. It's very important to establish what you want. For example, and that's part of the living will. Living will, again, do you want to be on life support? Do you want to be no matter what? And it goes into a little detail that way. But it's all your human rights that you're determining that you want to be carried out a certain way. And
yeah, because the understanding I have, and I know laws are different in different states, but in Arizona, for example, if someone does not have a living will, you're going to be kept on life support as long as feasibly possible. And
in some cases, hospitals won't move. I mean, like you say, they'll keep you on life support. They'll do what they want if they don't have. And you could be standing right next to the person who's ill, but if you don't have that medical power of attorney or living will, they won't follow your wishes.
And folks, just so you know, there's a financial interest for these hospitals to keep somebody on life support because, well, it's more billing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
and it drains a lot of families, and it
financially, sure.
And again, I'm not making any moral decisions here.
And emotionally, yeah.
But whatever you want, meaning you, the trust, when you make a trustee, you're the owner of the trustee. You are the trustee. You're also what they call the successor trustee, as long as you're alive. And your trust, as I say, could be changed anytime. I get any situation you can think of. I've seen it. At least I think I have, but I'm always surprised. But, somebody's leaving money to their 4 children, but they don't like their daughter's husband. And if something happens to her, they don't want him to get it. And so we provide all those situations, all those conditions. And that's what's important to really make you happy. It's your trust. It's your will. And what I was going to say, and I get carried away, I digress, and I apologize for that. But what I was trying to say is that it's your will. You're the trustee. And it's revocable. You can change it anytime you want for different reasons, like we just mentioned. But once you pass, it's now called irrevocable. So nobody can change what you want. And so it's just guaranteeing that everything you've worked for your entire life is protected and is going to be handled the way you want it to be handled.
Jack, you've mentioned a couple times now that obviously you can change these things anytime you want to. If somebody has a trust, estate plan, whatever, and they want to look in, when should somebody look into making updates, amendments, changes, whatever, that type of thing?
My feeling is that we as a company, it would be due diligence on everybody's part to look at this thing annually, because things do change. Even if it's a small thing like, well, I sold my car and I got a new car. Well, you got to get the new car named into the trust. Or again, situations with family change, people pass away. So many instances to cover. So I think once a year is, I think, often enough. And especially if something does happen, then obviously you initiate the call, whoever owns it, and we'll take care of you. I hope that answers it.
Yeah, no, I think, and I think what Jack you're alluding to here is, of course, the attorneys do the legal work to set up the trusts and all that stuff, and we work with some of the best and most qualified estate planning attorneys in the state. what you're really talking about is the management and servicing of this to keep it everything up to speed, everything funded correctly, like you said, make sure it works properly, right?
Yeah, I think the important thing, again, is that we do work with you. It's, I guess it's getting old-fashioned today. It could all be done by pressing a button on the computer. But I think it's important to talk to somebody. Maybe I'm old-fashioned as well, and I am, but most of the people I talk to are relieved to have someone to talk to because they can explain their situations that concerns them a lot. I've got people that are up at night tossing and turning because trying to figure out how to handle their estate with their kids and so on and so forth. Talking about it will make sure that the attorneys are doing exactly what you want. They're using the right words, the right phrases, whatever it is legally, to make sure that what you want is carried out. So
we'll discuss
important.
that further, I think, in the next segment. But if you want to contact Jack for more information, it's 866-515-6280 or Jack R at securemgt.com. That's Jack with the letter R at secure, SECURE, MGT.com. I'm going to really encourage you to stay tuned in the next segment because I'm going to ask Jack a little bit more about, maybe some of the challenges or again, why we know that you can set up a trust and people can do it online, they can do all kinds of things, but maybe why having an attorney, what are some of the advantages of having an attorney draft these documents for you? Certainly is a little bit more cost involved up front, but why it could save you a whole lot more down the road.
No question.
Absolutely. Okay. So we're gonna talk about that in the next segment. So I'm really going to encourage you to stay tuned for that. And of course, as always, if you're interested in more information on your personal bank, how to gain control of more of your money, maximize your returns, minimize market risk. Boy, is that important these days. Reduce your taxes, all that kind of good stuff. Get positive arbitrage. By all means, contact me at toll-free 866. Oh gosh, I totally forgot the number. It's yourpersonalbank.com. Just contact me there. That'll be a great place. Stay tuned in the next segment.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show, and of course we're here discussing estate planning with Jack Ryback. Jack, thanks for being with us today.
My pleasure.
And as we've stated in the first couple of segments, you can have a great offense, but without a good defense, it all comes to naught, doesn't it? And that's really what estate planning is about. What we were kind of discussing before was really the importance of having a good qualified estate planning attorney draft these documents because, well, for one, I know it's a very specialized area of law. Most attorneys don't deal with trusts or estate planning or those kinds of things. They're much like what a lot of people don't realize, and I remember sharing this for many years, attorneys specialize like doctors do oftentimes.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had, I always say, if you had chest pains, would you go see a foot doctor?
Yeah, when I began this business, working with trusts, I should say, mm-hmm. I called a couple friends of mine who are lawyers, and they both referred me to somebody that does this kind of work. Mm-hmm. So it is a specialty. It's not. It's complicated to maybe the average person on the street. It's not complicated to them. They do it all the time. Any situation that comes up, and one of the things we do, which makes it much more economical, I'm not trying to make a sale here, but it's
Sure.
important to understand this.
Right.
By talking to us at Secure Estate, we do a lot of the work for the attorney by finding out what it is you want. They'll put it into legal jargon and make it right, which is critical. But by talking to us first, sometimes that takes a lot more time. We don't charge for this, by the way, just so you know. It's a service, and we're happy to do it. But it could really help you make sure that we're covering everything, because we really, as we say, some people forget about certain situations. Again, I talked to somebody the other day, and they're angry at one person in their family, and they want them to have money, but they don't think they can handle money well. And so talking to Ference, we get a program, an investment program, where that money is put into something which will provide lifetime income for them.
Sure.
And that satisfies that particular situation. My point being, talk to us, figure out exactly, we'll help you determine what it is you want to do. And as things change, which they will, people do amend their trust all the time.
Sure.
We'll make it work for you. And the attorneys have to make it legal.
Right. And I think I liked what you pointed out there when you mentioned, I've had people ask me, why don't you charge for this service? Okay. Well, why do you do it? Okay. And it's like, and I think you just alluded to it, because if you're helping somebody else out with their overall estate, and you're helping them protect it, provide a good defense, oftentimes that leads to a client doing other business and doing other things.
Right.
So it becomes a win-win situation, obviously.
Yeah. And I have to say this, and again, for people that don't know me, I'm extremely handsome on the radio, tall, good-looking guy. But fact is, I get so much pleasure out of talking to people that are a little bit lost out there. And not everybody is. There's a lot of sophisticated, I'm sure, very sophisticated people listening to this radio broadcast right now.
Mm-hmm.
But there's an awful lot of people out there that they really need help, and they need someone to talk to. Oftentimes, and maybe it's a generational thing, but I have some women whose husband passed away. All of a sudden, they're left with a lot of money, and they don't know what to do with it. We not only help them with the trust, but as Ferenc is saying, we do complete financial planning and can really help people protect them.
So the bottom line is, as you were starting to say, is by helping these people get their financial house in order and get it well protected, it really it's filling out the whole perspective. Not just, again, I keep going this analogy, but it's so appropriate, setting up that good offense and that good defense, to have the whole package in place so that they feel comfortable. And like you said, the key point here is that getting it done, that's what I was alluding to is, I've seen situations too where somebody says, well, I can go online and get a trust done or whatever. If you've never done it before, it's probably a fairly daunting task. I know I paid one of our attorneys to do our trust for our family, even though I'm quite familiar with how they operate. It's just, I want to make sure the legal language is all there. But the main reason was, and I've seen this happen, when a hospital challenges a power of attorney, for example, or whatever, you want to have that attorney there backing it up. Not, because if you did it or you did it online and the hospital challenges it or whatever, or the bank, or you're stuck.
And let me say something. This will help testify to the quality of the kind of work we've been doing for all these years. Is very, very rarely does an attorney have to get involved after the trust is made, because they're made really well.
Right.
I mean,
and I'm gonna have to cut you off because we're cutting out on a break, and we're going to come in the last segment on this, and I'm going to encourage you to stay tuned. But again, if you want to contact Jack for more information on estate planning, 866-515-6280.
And ask for Jack.
Yeah, and ask for Jack. Or contact him at jackr@securemgt.com. Stay tuned in the last segment. We're going to cover a little bit more about estate planning, so don't miss it.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ferenc at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ferenc Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show, and today we're discussing estate planning. We have a special guest with us, Jack Ryback. So, Jack, thank you for joining us again.
Thank you, Ferenc. It's always a pleasure.
Over the break, Jack was sharing with me something I thought was really great. He's talking about, obviously, having an attorney draft these documents is key. A qualified estate planning attorney is really key to make sure everything's done right. If anything ever gets challenged, you got the attorney to back it up, that kind of thing. Also, these attorneys, which are specialists, let's be fair, are very busy. And you mentioned you get a lot of phone calls from folks who just have questions or a little bit confused. And although, yes, the attorney could answer the questions and bill them for those hours, they don't really want to have to deal with that typically, right?
Well, you're right. They absolutely, they don't want to be bothered because it's not big. It's not doing a complete new trust unless the people need it.
Right.
But we really do pave the way for all of that. And if somebody does call with problems, then I can tell you, I get these calls every day. I'm happy to help them. They don't need the attorney for many of them, because the hospital, for example, a recent one was, the hospital's not letting me, tell them what I want to do with my husband. And I said, You take your trust, go to the fourth tab. I literally tell them where to go in the trust. Take your certificate of trust, which is what they need to show that you have that power of attorney. And once they do that, their problem is solved. It happens again and again, and I'm happy, and we're happy to take care of those situations. Avoid the attorney, not that we don't want to give the attorney, to help them out, but you don't need to spend the money if you really don't have to. It's not complicated.
Right. So I think a lot of, like you said, the maintenance, the service aspects of it, with your ability to kind of help steer people on what's important and what's not, when the attorney needs to be brought into the picture and when it's not necessary, saves a client a lot of money rather than having to go to the attorney all the time and, of course, getting billed, what, a couple $100 an hour probably?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. And as I say, I think I've heard every situation that could happen, but I'd be pretty shocked to see something happen that I haven't experienced.
Right.
So we're really there to help you. And I will tell you this first and foremost, even though I'd love to talk to anybody, if you do have a situation, I'm not a lawyer, and I make that very clear.
Right.
And I would forward them or advise them to go refer them to the attorney, but rarely does that need to happen. But I just want you to know that if it was something that required some kind of a legal decision or legal determination, I wouldn't even, we'll always get you to the right place. That's what I'm trying to say.
So you're kind of like playing the quarterback, so to speak.
In a way, or the concierge in
Concierge.
a hotel.
I like that. Being concierge. Here's where so you're not drafting the trusts or being very clear here, doing any of the legal work or any of that kind of stuff. The qualified estate planning attorneys are doing all of that, but it's able to get sort of the best of the best doing the legal work for you and at a reasonable cost versus going in and doing it all with the attorney and probably paying double easily, right?
Triple. I had
Yeah.
a meeting with one of my very good friends, and I said, "Why didn't you call me? We would have helped you."
Right.
She says, "No, well, these people, they sat down with me and they did this." I said, "I know exactly what they did." And
Right.
we went over it, and of course, it's everything that we do. And I said, "How much did you pay for that?" And he literally paid over 3 times what
Right.
we would normally charge, or what the attorney would charge.
Well, of course, because the attorney has to charge for their billable hours, right?
Yeah.
For their time.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So as we started in the show in the beginning, if you missed it, I'm going to go over a few things real quick, like sort of Jack, why should somebody look into estate planning?
It's an important thing to protect your assets. It's that simple. When somebody passes, you don't want it to go to probate, which means attorneys have to get involved. And the way to avoid that is not a will, but a trust. A trust will keep the attorneys away and keep it out of probate.
Okay.
And that's extremely important. You've worked your entire life to build your estate, whatever size it is, and you want to make sure that it's protected and passed on the way you want it to be passed on.
Now,
That's why you do a trust.
who should look into a trust, Jack?
Anybody that owns a home, anybody that has assets, in my opinion, of any size. It could even be if all you have is a bank account, but you want that taken care of and it's growing and growing, let's make sure it goes to the right people. Vehicles, campers. I've got people that have, multiple vehicles, including a plane or whatever. You want those protected because otherwise that will go to probate. And even though in your mind you're giving it to Cousin Louie or Cousin Joe, it's not getting to Cousin Joe if it's not in the trust.
And why should someone use a qualified estate planning attorney to draft a trust
You
or an
want
update?
you want to make sure that it's done right. You don't want it to be questioned later because look, we're in America. Anybody can sue anybody, but the way these trusts are drawn, nobody can come in and break the trust.
They're pretty ironclad.
Pretty ironclad, and we're covering everything. You're always going to get one person to say, well, wait, they promised me this or they promised me that. Well, a trust keeps all that from happening.
And if somebody has a trust, when should they look at updating?
I would recommend yearly, or in the event of anything major happening, somebody passed away, and one of your beneficiaries is no longer living, or you don't like somebody to handle your trust, they're not a good successor trustee. Any of those situations, you give a call, and we're happy to help you right away. Otherwise, I would look at it every year. It's amazing how many people put that trust away and they forget about it, and oh my God, 6 or 7 things have changed, So I would do it as frequently as you can.
And if you want more information on estate planning, you want to contact Jack, I recommend calling him at toll-free 866-515-6280. Again, that's 866-515-6280. Or Jack R, it's Jack with the letter R, at securemgt.com. That's SECUREMGT.com. And if you contact Jack, I did an interview with one of our most qualified, most experienced estate planning attorneys not too long ago. Did a radio interview with him. If you contact Jack, I'm sure Jack would be happy to forward that radio interview I did with him, discussing all about trust. I remember we discussed special needs, all kinds of things, all types of special situations with trust with the estate planning attorney. Jack would be happy to forward you that interview that I did on the radio show, and that'll again give you even some more additional information. So again, it's 866-515-6280 or Jack R at securemgt.com. Now, Jack, we got a few more minutes left, and I wanted to change gears a little because I think we've covered the estate planning about as much as we can or want to at this point. But I know you do a lot in the annuity business world. I've done that for 23 years myself. And annuities have kind of fallen out of favor over the last few years because of the interest rate environment being so low, the rates and the caps and fees and stuff. It was kind of hard to make money in annuities, but this year all that has changed, hasn't it?
Annuity companies are very competitive, and some of the things you can get, getting people immediately by moving. And by the way, if you have an annuity, a lot of people think they're stuck with that annuity for 10 years, 15 years, whatever it is they signed up for. That's not the case, because there are annuity companies out there will give you a 10% bonus. So immediately you're picking up 10%. So if you lose 3%, who cares? You're picking up 7%. And they're guaranteeing you can't lose a penny. Number one, very safe. And they are, as Ferenc was alluding to, they're making a great deal more in percentages. And they can be, and they can help you in many ways in that, like I was talking a little earlier with the trust, I've got somebody that wants to leave a great deal of money to his daughter but doesn't think she can handle the money. And so we're setting it up with an annuity that's what they call a lifetime annuity. And at a certain point, whenever he passes, she will automatically be getting X number of dollars every year for the rest of her life.
And I'm assuming you're incorporating that with the trust. So
exactly.
So it's she's a trust fund kid in essence.
In a sense, yes.
Yeah.
And you could do that for anybody.
Right.
So I'm a big believer that any one facet of, I guess, financial planning may not be right for everybody, but I'm finding more and more people that are very, very happy with these annuities.
Well, I think it boils down to, like you said, annuity is not for everyone. But what are the strengths of an annuity and the weaknesses? The strength, of course, is grow. You can get double-digit growth based on good market years, index growth, with no downside risk and bad years.
And you can still access 10, when you
typically 10%
every year
right.
free with no penalties, et cetera, et cetera. So
which brings the weakness of an annuity is there's not a lot of liquidity in them because you got access to 10%. If somebody's looking to grow their money safely and they want to create, say, a guaranteed income, that's where annuities have their strengths.
Right.
And it's always a good diversification strategy. If you have a portfolio where maybe you're in the market or real estate or whatever it may be, but you want to put a piece over here and create, in essence, another pension check or like a private pension almost. Many people refer it to that way, or you can do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of advantages to annuities, no question about it. And I do quite a bit of them, as Ferenc was saying.
Exactly. So
the important thing is that when you talk to someone and really get to know them and they reveal what their goals are, we'll help you find them, whatever they are.
Right. And I think that's one of the things if you've listened to this show, I talk about their strengths and weaknesses to every tool, to every product. I've done annuities for clients when it makes sense, when it's appropriate, and I've told them when it's not. Your Personal Bank, it's not for everyone, but I've shared with them many times where it makes sense, enhances their financial position or whatever, reduces market risk, creates a diversification bucket, whatever it may be, a tax-free bucket, any of those kinds of things of money. When it makes sense, it makes sense. And I guess what Jack's trying to allude to here is what we try to do is when something makes sense to fit their goals, bring it to your attention and then share the strengths and weaknesses of why we're recommending this. My pet peeve, Jack, you've known this, and I've shared this on the radio show so many times, is when you hear somebody say, oh, annuities are bad, or this is bad, or that is bad, and they make these blanket statements.
Right.
All they're doing is sharing their own personal bias. That's it. They're not thinking about what's in your best interest. So,
and one more thing, while we talk about how often or the frequency you should check on your trust and review it.
Sure.
It's the same thing with these annuities or
Yeah.
any of
Good
your
point.
investments. I mean, I've got people, again, as I say, so many people that have annuities that they haven't looked at them for a while, and they think they're stuck with them for the duration of the annuity. They're not.
Jack, that is a great point because you're right. If anybody's set up an annuity, say in the past decade, certainly, with the interest rate environment that was in place all during that period, the annuity that they obtained at that point is extremely likely that it's not as good as one that they could get today. And even if there was still some sort of surrender of getting, because that's the other catch on annuities. People say, typically in most cases they're 7 or 10 year periods. If you take them out before that, there's a surrender fee, and it's usually a declining surrender fee over that time period. Well, and so like you said, a lot of people think they're stuck with it. They're in a 10-year annuity and they're 5 years in it, and they feel like they can't get out for another 5 years, and they're kind of stuck in a low-performing annuity because interest rates were so low at that time when they got it 5 years ago. But as you've pointed out, there's now signing bonuses and such.
Every annuity I've looked at in the last couple of years, they're maybe making 2%, which
Right.
is to me terrible.
Exactly.
And by moving them into something where they're getting 6 or more percent, or at least 4% plus,
So they're doubling or tripling their returns.
easily.
Yeah. And they're getting their penalty covered.
Exactly.
And then some.
Yeah, with the bonus, no question. It makes a lot of sense.
If you want more information on that or have any questions, contact Jack at 866-515-6280 or Jack R at securemgt.com. That's Jack with an R at securemgt.com. Again, it's 866-515-6280. Jack, I want to thank you for joining us again today. It was great.
Well, thank you, Ference. It's a pleasure. I hope we help some people.
Absolutely. So last thing I want to leave everybody with is, we're in unprecedented economic times. We're in a lot of economic chaos. I'm going to recommend you contact Jack or I if you want some advice and guide through this, navigate this economic storm that we're in. And it's as long as it's still on our money, I'm going to say, in God we trust.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. This show is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information. The presenter and guest on this program do not engage in legal, accounting, or tax advice. Professional advice regarding your situation should be sought if required. Products and riders may have limitations and may not be available in all states. Excessive unpaid loans may affect performance. Distributions may become taxable if not managed properly. Replacements may not be suitable for everyone. There may be charges when replacing coverage. Compare when considering a replacement. Dividend rates and baseline of credit rates may change. Contact yourpersonalbank.com for current rates.